and it is here. The 2024 edition of the T20 Cricket World Cup is finally upon us. Who are going to be the top teams in contention? What are some of the fun, interesting things about the groups and the fixtures and all of that? We'll walk through those as we build up to the T20 World Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your new favorite cricket fan channel, Willow and Leather. This is Shravan joining you once again. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel, for watching these videos and providing all your love and support. Please keep doing more of the same. Right, so in what promises to be a historic World Cup, we have 20 teams participating in the main tournament this time, by far the most number of teams that have participated in any edition of the T20 World Cup before. Jointly hosted by the West Indies and the United States of America, 7 venues in the Caribbean and 3 venues in the United States. Especially proud of the fact that United States is a host nation, having lived here in the United States for the last 12 years and kind of been involved in the cricket scene here locally for a good amount of time now. It is a matter of incredible pride for us living in the US to be able to host this World Cup as well. Right, so the 3 key venues in the United States, one is the Grand Prairie Stadium in Texas. So this was a stadium that came up last year and was used extensively in the Major League Cricket Tournament, the inaugural edition last year. Great stadium, great atmosphere, and I'm sure it'll continue to be an excellent cricketing venue for the future as well, not just for this World Cup. We also have a venue in Florida, close to Fort Lauderdale. Again, this is a venue that has been previously used for bilateral series between India and the West Indies, etc., over the last few years. So that will be an interesting venue for teams to participate and play as well. And the third venue, which is a new one coming up specifically for this tournament, which will mark the debut for this particular stadium, is the Nassau County International Stadium coming up in New York. And I think it has a capacity of almost 30,000 people. So this is a brand new stadium that they're building. They're bringing in drop-in pitches, which have been curated in Adelaide, and they basically just cut out those patches of the pitch and then ship them over, and they just laid those pitches down a couple of weeks ago in Nassau County. So that promises to be an exciting new venue for the sport of cricket in the US as well. Right, so as I mentioned, 20 teams participating. And the way the groups have been laid out, there will be a total of 4 groups with 5 teams each. Group A has India, Pakistan, USA, Ireland, and Canada. So it's a very interesting group. India and Pakistan obviously start off as firm favorites, but United States more recently, just less than a week ago, beating Bangladesh in a series, not just a one-off game, but they beat them in a series in T20. So they're definitely, probably buoyant from that fact, and the fact that they'll be playing at home definitely kind of gives them a little bit of an advantage as well, albeit new venues, but I'm sure they'll try and create a few upsets in that particular group. Right, Group B, Australia, England, Namibia, Oman, and Scotland. Again, I think although Scotland probably has some potential to try and cause some upsets, but Australia and England are like overwhelming favorites in that group as well. So probably my pick for the least amount of upsets happening in the group stage will probably be from Group B. I think Australia and England are firmly the big favorites to make it out of that group. Group C, this is an interesting group. Afghanistan, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Uganda, and West Indies. Now, both Papua New Guinea and Uganda are making their T20 World Cup debuts for their respective countries. Same thing with United States as well. So those are the 3 new countries playing for the first time. And I would suspect Papua New Guinea and Uganda to, probably not be as competitive as the other 3 teams in this group here. So New Zealand, West Indies, and Afghanistan. New Zealand and West Indies, I would think, are still favorites to qualify from that group. But Afghanistan, again, is an absolutely formidable team. And in the T20 format, that is the format which has the highest chances or potential for causing upsets. So I wouldn't write Afghanistan off just as yet. But I think West Indies, the way their squad is lined up, I think they have some absolute monsters in that batting lineup. So it'll be interesting to see how the West Indies team does, especially playing in what will be a home World Cup for them. So all eyes on West Indies for sure. Right, and Group D, Bangladesh, Netherlands, Nepal, South Africa, and Sri Lanka. South Africa and Sri Lanka again will probably be the favorites, but Sri Lanka have known to fumble things up more recently, and I think Bangladesh will try and look for that opportunity. So I think that game between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh could very well decide who is the other team that qualifies from that group, along with South Africa. Right, so those are the four groups, and as I mentioned, top two teams from each group will make it to the next stage, which is the Super 8s, which is again slightly different from the formats that we've had in previous World Cups, but I think this is definitely a more comprehensive way to test each team against different opponents and make sure that truly the best of the best who have done well consistently over a good run of games are the ones who make it to the semi-finals from there. But yeah, so for the Super 8s, again, the format for that is the teams will be divided into two groups of 4 teams each. Now the seedings have already been decided for the groups. So from Group A, India is ranked as A1 and Pakistan is ranked as A2. Which means irrespective of what positions India and Pakistan qualify in, if they're the two teams that qualify, India will be part of Group 1 as A1 in that group. Pakistan, even if they top Group A, they will still be placed in Group B as the A2 ranking. And again, the seeding for these top 8 teams was done ahead of time to help with some of the scheduling from a viewership standpoint and all of that. So irrespective of who tops that group, if India and Pakistan are the two teams qualifying from Group A, then India will take the position of A1, which will be in Group 1, and Pakistan will take the position of A2, which will be in Group 2. Now, if one of those two teams do not qualify, then the other team that makes it in place of that team will assume that spot. So just as an example, if USA, for example, qualifies instead of Pakistan from Group A, then Pakistan would assume the position of A2, irrespective of whether they top the table or they finish second in that group. If both the teams that are seeded do not qualify, so let's say if both India and Pakistan do not qualify, and let's say for example USA and Canada qualify, then they will look at the rankings in the group. So if USA finishes at the top of the table, USA will be ranked as A1, and Canada, if they're finishing second in the table, they'll be ranked as A2. And this is how it's going to work for all the groups. So for Group A, India is A1, Pakistan is A2. For Group B, England is B1 and Australia is B2. For Group C, New Zealand is C1 and West Indies is C2. And for Group D, South Africa is D1 and Sri Lanka is D2. Now, assuming these are the 8 teams that qualify, but if anything changes there, as I mentioned earlier, the team that makes it in place of one of these teams will take those positions as well. I absolutely do not see the possibility of both of these 2 seeded teams from any group not qualifying. I imagine at least one, if not both of these 2 teams from each group will qualify to the Super 8s. So the groups for the Super 8, Group 1 will be A1, B2, C1 and D2. So if assuming these teams qualify, that will be India, Australia, New Zealand and Sri Lanka. So those will be the 4 teams. No matter which position in the group they qualify from, if they're in the top 2 and if they make it to the Super 8s, this is the group of the 4 teams that will be playing. India, Australia, New Zealand and Sri Lanka, which is a very, very interesting group. And then from Group 2, it would be Pakistan, England, West Indies and South Africa. Again, a very, very interesting group once again. But it makes it so interesting in the group, in the Super 8 stages. So everyone in the group will be playing against the other 3 teams in that group. And at the end of the Super 8 stage, the top 2 teams again from each of these 2 groups will make it to the semi-finals. So the topper from Group 1 will play the team that finished second from Group 2. And the topper from Group 2 will play against the second place team from Group 1. So that's how the seedings and the Super 8s have been lined up. And interestingly enough, if India qualifies for the semi-finals, if they manage to get through the group stage and the Super 8s, if they qualify for the semi-finals, irrespective of whether they finish at the top of Group 1 or they finish in the second position for Group 1, they will be playing the second semi-finals that is happening in Guyana. So now this has already been pre-decided, again because of the timings of the game and which time slot is more suitable for the Indian and the subcontinent spectators or audience across the ocean. So I think this gives India a very, very, very distinct, and I would actually call it an unfair advantage, to be honest, knowing fully well which venue you're going to be playing in. If you make it to the semi-finals, I think that's a massive advantage to have. No other team has been afforded this luxury. Just goes to show the influence or the power of the Indian board over ICC as well, I guess, which is very, very unfortunate, to be honest. But India has that distinct advantage of knowing exactly where they will play their semis. Now, given a team which is as strong as India, you would definitely expect them to make it out of the group, but also very likely do well in the Super 8s as well, and could very well be one of the strong contenders to make it to the semi-finals. So if you're making it to the semi-finals and you know exactly where you're playing, then you really need to have to just worry about the semis and the finals. And if you know the venue for the semi-finals, which is in Guyana, which is known to be a more spin-friendly wicket, that gives you a very, very distinct advantage. And I think that is reflected in the squad selection that India has done as well, going in with 4 spin bowling options there. Kuldeep Yadav, Yuzvendra Chahal, and then the 2 left arm off break all-rounders in Ravindra Jadeja and Akshar Patel. I think a lot of thought has gone behind it, and this information that they will be playing that second game on a more spin-friendly wicket has probably influenced the selection of 4 spinners in their squad. No other team is going in with those many spinners in their lineup, but India, I think, are hedging their bets that one way or the other they will obviously qualify from the group, but then eventually make it out of the Super 8s as well. And when they get to the semi-finals, knowing where they're playing, I think they just want to stack the odds in their favor to make sure that they can then have a strong team for that semis and then qualify for the finals. So yeah, it is an absolutely massive advantage, and as I said, it is a fairly unfair advantage as well. But given how a lot of the competition logistics are driven by viewership and all of that stuff, I think that has influenced this particular decision. But yeah, in either case, I think India definitely start off as one of the strong contenders for the competition. In addition to that, Australia, you can never really write off Australia, although in T20s, they are probably not at the same potency as they are in ODIs or in tests, but they have an absolutely fantastic lineup. And the fact that most of the big name Australian players entered the IPL this time around and got some absolutely valuable game time and experience there, and most of the players hit good form during that IPL. You saw the likes of Travis Head, what he did in the IPL this time around. Pat Cummins, both as a bowler and as a leader, doing exceptionally well there. Of course, the team will be led by Mitch Marsh in the World Cup, but just the likes of Pat Cummins being there as a leadership option, part of the think tank will definitely help. And then we all saw what magic Mitchell Starc conjured up in the playoffs. Had a very poor start to the IPL season, but then as the tournament progressed, he just kept getting better and better, and he's hitting like top gear right now. So it'll be really interesting to see how Australia does in this World Cup as well. The other couple of favorites for me, I think, would be England, defending champions. Not a whole lot has changed in their team balance and lineup. One key miss for them will be Ben Stokes not being available, who's still kind of trying to fully recover from his knee injury and wants to come back and be more competitive, and he just wants to give his body enough time to rest and recover fully before he makes a comeback in international cricket. So I think Ben Stokes will be a massive loss for them, but even without him, that batting order is absolutely a gun lineup. When you have the likes of Butler, Will Jacks, etc. there at the top of the order, and then a very strong middle order to follow as well. I think that team is looking fairly solid too. And then my fourth favorite team, I mean, these are just teams that I'm predicting will make it to the semifinals. The fourth team for me, I'm going to actually go with West Indies. New Zealand are like a very solid team, very well rounded, and you know exactly what to expect from a New Zealand team year in, year out from every tournament. Very consistent. They'll definitely put on a fight and try and make it to the semis at least. Same thing with South Africa as well. I think they have a fairly decent squad for the T20 World Cup as well. But I think West Indies, that batting order is looking probably the most dangerous. Amongst all the teams, to be honest. And if two of the guys in that batting lineup, take off, then it's just absolute carnage. I think there is probably a little bit of a gap in their bowling department, and in terms of all-rounders, they just lost Jason Holder to an injury as well. But despite all of that, I feel like West Indies probably still has enough in the tank to make a push, definitely into the Super 8s, but then beyond that to try and get to the semis as well. Especially, playing at home, I think they'll have that extra motivation and that support behind them to do really well. So it'll be interesting to see, how the likes of Nicholas Poore, Andre Russell, all these guys do for the team. So it'll be definitely a team to watch out for. So those are my, that's a quick rundown of the format of the tournament and my predictions for what the top four could look like. The guys making it to the semis, my picks would be India, Australia, England, and West Indies. Time will tell, how close I am to the predictions. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree with any of my picks for the top four teams? Please do let me know in the comments. It'll be exciting to see how the tournament progresses. Promises to be a very exciting contest and an exciting tournament overall. All the games are kind of happening at different times during the day to accommodate viewers from those nations to be able to watch at their convenient times. So you will see games that USA or West Indies are involved in. They will be happening more in the evening time, in the prime time for the US time zones. But for teams like India, Pakistan, etc., when those guys are playing, those matches are happening a little earlier in the day here in the US, which means it's more prime time, late evening for the viewers back home in India. So yeah, a lot of interesting things. Logistically, it's a little bit of a different tournament. Schedule-wise as well, there's a lot happening. Super 8s, we haven't done those in a while now. Any team that qualifies from the group and makes it to the Super 8s will get at least a run of 7 games. So that's a lot of games when you think about it for a T20 World Cup. So it'll be absolutely fantastic, to watch some of these matchups across some of the strongest teams in the Super 8s. Every game, I think, will be a lot of fun to watch, and we'll see how things go. But my prediction would be an India-Australia final again. We'll see if that comes true, and if India gets the chance to get some sweet revenge for the ODI World Cup loss from late last year. So hopefully, it's a fun tournament. I will keep posting videos of a few games in between, some of the key highlights and talking points from the tournament as well, kind of similar to what I did for the IPL. So please do, continue staying tuned into this channel. Thank you so much for all your love and support. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.